The small crowned soul whose emotions could shake galaxies, the world of Luma, 9 was small, quiet, and often ignored. It was a rocky planet near the edge of known space, far from trade routes and great cities. Different species passed by only when they had no other choice. Humans lived there in simple domes, working farms under artificial skies. They were seen as weak, emotional, and unimportant by the larger galaxy. On one silent night, under a pale artificial moon, a human child was born. The birth happened in a simple medical room made of metal and glass. No alarms rang, no stars exploded, no armies moved. Yet something unseen shifted deep within the universe. Far away, instruments flickered for a moment, then returned to normal. Ancient machines older than most civilizations paused, as if listening. The child was small and quiet. When the doctor lifted the newborn, a strange feeling passed through the room. It was not fear or pain. It was something softer, deeper. A calm mixed with heavy sadness. The doctor shook his head, unsure why his hands were trembling. Above the child's head, nothing could be seen. No light, no mark. Yet something was there. Something shaped like a crown, made not of metal, but of presence. The child was named simply. A short name, easy to say. No one thought it mattered. In the early years, the child grew like any other human. Small steps, slow words, quiet eyes. But emotions came strongly. When the child laughed, others nearby felt warm and light, even without knowing why. When the child cried, people felt a deep ache in their chests. Animals reacted too. Small creatures moved closer when the child was calm. Machines sometimes failed when the child was scared. These things were noticed but never understood. Humans on Luma. 9 had learned to accept strange events. Life at the edge of space was already hard. Far from Luma. 9. In a dark region between galaxies, an ancient station drifted alone. It belonged to no current empire. It had been built long before humans learned fire. Inside, old systems watched reality itself. One system blinked. A signal appeared where none should exist. The station activated low-level scans.
The signal was weak but strange. It carried no energy signature known to science.
It was shaped by emotion. The station tried to trace it. The trace led toward human space. At the same time, on Luma, 9, the child reached the age of 6. The child had learned that the world could be cruel. Other children avoided them. Some adults felt uneasy without knowing why. The child did not understand these reactions, only that being alone felt safer. One day, a supply ship arrived late. Food was low. Tempers were high. An argument broke out in the central dome. Voices rose. Fear spread. The child stood nearby, holding a small tool dropped on the floor. As shouting grew louder, the child felt overwhelmed. Fear mixed with sadness and confusion. The child's chest tightened. At that moment, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the dome. It was not loud, but it was felt in the bones. Everyone froze. The argument stopped. The hum faded, and the lights returned to normal. No damage was found. No system error recorded. Yet every adult present felt the same thing. For a brief moment, it felt as if the world itself had listened. That night, the child dreamed. In the dream, the child stood in a wide, dark space filled with stars. A soft voice spoke without sound. It did not give commands. It did not give answers. It only shared feeling, balance. Wait, care. When the child woke, tears were on the pillow, though no memory of sadness remained. Years passed. The child grew into a quiet youth, still small, still overlooked. But the emotions remained strong, stronger now, deeper, more controlled, yet heavier. The youth learned to hide feelings, to keep calm, because strong emotions cause strange effects. Its crew belonged to a tall, silver-skinned species known for logic and order. They did not care about humans, only data. Their mission was simple: investigate a weak anomaly detected near Luma 9. The anomaly was the child. The ship's sensors picked up fluctuations whenever the youth moved through crowded areas. The readings made no sense. No radiation, no force, only disturbance. The lead researcher ordered a deeper scan. The moment the scan focused on the youth, alarms sounded across the vessel. Systems overloaded. Data streams collapsed into noise. The crew felt sudden fear, sharp and unexpected. The youth felt it too. Pain filled the chest. Not physical pain, but something heavier. The youth dropped to their knees. Hands pressed against the ground. Fear rose fast, wild, and uncontrolled. In deep space, the ancient station reacted. A containment ring around the station failed. Energy fields shattered like glass. The station tried to shut down, but it was too late. It had listened for too long. The station exploded without fire. It simply came apart, pieces drifting silently into the dark. Back on Luma 9, the alien vessel lost power. It fell from the sky but managed an emergency landing. No one died. The youth lost consciousness. When the youth woke, the sky was calm. The ship lay broken in the distance. No one understood what had happened. Across the galaxy, ancient watchers stirred. Something had awakened, and it felt human. The youth slowly learned to control the strange power within. Life on Luma 9 became a careful routine. Daily chores, lessons, and quiet walks across the rocky plains were enough to keep the mind calm. Yet the youth always felt the pull of distant emotions, as if invisible threads reached out across the stars. One morning, a new figure arrived on the small planet. A human traveler named Kyle came with news. He spoke of worlds in turmoil, of alien fleets clashing over empty space, and of strange disturbances in star systems far away. He noticed the youth immediately. Kale had seen signs of the same strange power in the past, though he could not explain it fully. Kale warned the youth that attention from beyond the borders of known space could be dangerous. Some forces would seek to control such power. Others might wish to destroy it. The youth listened quietly, though fear and curiosity battled inside. Kale showed small devices that measured emotion, instruments from ancient times. When the youth stood near them, the readings spiked dramatically, causing alarms to sound and lights to flicker. Kale's eyes widened. He whispered that the galaxy had never seen such strength in a single human. As days passed, news of disturbances reached more systems. Ships reported that weapons suddenly failed, communication arrays went silent, and shields fluctuated without cause. Everywhere, the pattern seemed to start from Luma 9. Aliens who once ignored humans now sent probes, scouts, and observers. Most believed the human youth was the source, though how was impossible to understand. The youth began to explore emotions more deliberately. With Kale's guidance, they practiced controlling anger, fear, joy and sorrow. Each attempt created ripples in space, sometimes small, sometimes large. On one day, the youth accidentally felt deep sadness for a distant planet where refugees had been lost to war. The pain was overwhelming. Machines sputtered, lights went out, and even the atmosphere in the dome seemed heavy. The youth fell to the ground, tears spilling, not only from personal feeling but from the emotions of countless others. Aliens observing remotely took note. Many were scared. Some wondered if the youth was a weapon or a miracle. Discussions began in distant councils, far from Luma. 9. Strategies were drawn to capture, to monitor, to test. Others debated morality. Could a single human so small and fragile hold the power to reshape the galaxies simply with feeling? One night, a fleet of silver-skinned aliens approached the planet. They carried advanced sensors, weapons, and plans for containment. KL warned the youth to stay hidden, but curiosity was stronger than fear. From a high ridge, the youth watched the ships descend. A strange sensation filled the air, something deep and unexplainable. The fleet experienced sudden technical failures. Engines sputtered, weapons went offline, and shields collapsed. Aliens panicked. No fire, no explosion, just an invisible wave that seemed to start from the youth's heart. Afterward, Kale helped the youth understand the responsibility they carried. This was no ordinary skill. It was ancient, tied to humans in ways forgotten by most of the galaxy. Humans had once been called emotional anchors, balancing not just planets, but reality itself. This knowledge weighed heavily on the youth, who had only wanted a quiet life. Days later, distant stars pulsed faintly. Strange lights appeared in the sky, signaling that something greater had awakened. The youth felt it. The universe itself was listening. And it was waiting. Part 2 ended with a quiet tension. Luma, 9, remained small and unnoticed to most, but the galaxy had begun to feel the weight of one human's emotions. As the human youth grew, the galaxy began to take notice. Signals from Luma 9 reached alien councils and research stations far away. Many debated whether the youth was a threat or a miracle. Some believed the human must be studied carefully. Others thought it dangerous and wanted to eliminate the unknown power. One alien commander, tall and imposing, arrived with a fleet designed for both study and force. Commander Talar was known for his logic, his strict mind, and his complete lack of patience for unpredictability. Yet, as his sensors focused on the youth, he felt something he had never expected. Fear, sudden and raw, filled him. The systems on his flagship began to fail, shields dimmed, and his crew struggled to maintain control. The youth had felt it too, not as a threat, but as pain. Pain from emotions carried across space, from Commander Talar and his crew. The human collapsed, clutching the ground, overwhelmed. Around Luma 9, the air shimmered faintly, as if reacting to the intensity of the feeling. Kale helped the youth recover. He explained that the power was not limited to personal emotion. The youth could sense and react to the feelings of others, even at great distances. That meant every act of anger, fear, or sorrow in the galaxy could create waves through the human heart. It was terrifying, but it was also a gift. The alien commander Talar refused to retreat. He sent small strike teams to capture the youth, believing logic and technology could overcome emotion. Every approach failed. Ships stalled near the ground, systems glitched, and communications became garbled. Soldiers described seeing illusions of light and shadow, figures of sorrow and hope moving in the air, though no one could explain them. Some fled, Some went silent, and a few were found huddled, terrified, when the waves passed. Meanwhile, the youth began to understand the burden of empathy. Listening to distant suffering, feeling lost worlds and frightened populations was exhausting. One night, the youth sat alone on a ridge, staring at the stars. Every twinkle seemed alive, whispering sorrow and hope at once. The weight was nearly unbearable. Kale placed a hand on the youth's shoulder, reminding them that strength could come from calm, that compassion could guide power. In secret, ancient alien archives opened across the galaxy. Records showed that humans were once called emotional anchors. Their emotions had stabilized planets, star systems, even the flows of energy that tied galaxies together. The crown the youth seemed to wear was the mark of this responsibility, though invisible to all but those sensitive to the Force. The youth realized that anger or hate could destroy, joy or compassion could heal. The choice mattered more than the action. Commander Talar, growing desperate, devised a plan to provoke the youth. He targeted a distant world, staging violence and chaos, hoping to incite rage. But when the youth sensed the suffering, instead of anger, sorrow filled the heart. The result was immense. Machines failed across fleets, stars seemed to flicker, wormholes became unstable, time in certain regions slowed, and yet no one could see any attack. It was the humans' grief and empathy that caused the disturbance. Kale watched, fear and admiration mixing. The youth's power was no longer local. It reached across systems, touching stars, fleets, and planets alike. The galaxy had begun to learn that humans could not be measured by size, strength, or weapons. The smallest soul could hold the most weight. As Part 3 ended, tension spread across the universe. Alien commanders debated how to respond, some hoping to control, others hoping to flee. And the human youth, exhausted yet calm, understood for the first time the true scale of responsibility. They were not just a child on Luma 9. They were a presence that could shape the balance of galaxies, even without trying. The youth felt the weight of the galaxy in ways no one could see. Every breath, every heartbeat carried more than personal emotion. Pain, fear, hope, and joy from countless worlds reached the human-like waves in an invisible ocean. At times it was overwhelming, but at other times it offered clarity. The youth realized that control was possible, but only if each feeling was understood and balanced. Kale stayed by the youth's side. He had grown wise through experience and had seen the consequences of misused power. He warned that other forces in the galaxy would not wait patiently. Commander Talar and similar leaders were planning to provoke the youth further, seeking to either harness or destroy what they could not control. The youth decided to visit the ruins of a dead star on the outskirts of the system. Legend spoke of ancient knowledge hidden there, left by a civilization that had understood the human role long ago. When the youth arrived, the ruins glowed faintly, responding to their presence. Inside, walls showed images of humans in many forms, their emotions shaping planets, stars, and even life itself. The youth saw visions of the past, where humans had been the quiet guardians of balance, using emotions not to conquer, but to protect. The crown the youth now understood was a symbol of this balance. It was not a mark of power to rule, but a responsibility to maintain harmony. The youth felt its presence growing, like a soft pressure above the head, guiding rather than commanding. While exploring, a new group arrived on Luma 9. They were humans from distant colonies drawn by tales of the youth's abilities. Each carried their own small powers, subtle but noticeable, showing that human potential was not limited to one individual. They came with hope and with warnings. The galaxy's attention was rising, and some alien factions were planning decisive actions. Commander Taller launched a bold plan. He arranged a scenario meant to provoke extreme anger. Entire colonies were threatened, their cries amplified across space. The youth felt the full weight of the suffering. This time, instead of rage, a strange calm washed over them. Compassion grew stronger than fear. The crown glimmered faintly, visible to some who watched closely. As the youth focused, waves of energy moved silently through space. Weapons froze in their firing positions, engines stalled mid-flight, and communications broke down in alien fleets. Stars blinked, as if listening. Nothing violent occurred, yet the effect was undeniable. The universe itself seemed to respond to the balance of emotion. Kale and the other humans watched in awe. They realized the youth's role had always been larger than any single battle or war. Understanding came slowly, but the lesson was clear. Control of emotion, not suppression, was the true path to influence. Commander Taller, furious and confused, attempted a final approach. His ship hovered above Luma. 9, weapons armed. The youth met his gaze, feeling both fear and sorrow. Tala tried to instill anger, to provoke retaliation, but the youth did not respond with hate. Instead, understanding flowed outward. Talar's mind filled with the weight of all his past actions, regrets, and fears. He could not move, he could not speak. The wave passed, leaving him changed. The galaxy began to shift. Even those far from Luma, 9 felt subtle tremors. Ancient watchers, long silent, recorded new patterns. The human youth was no longer just a figure on a small planet. The balance they carried influenced entire systems. Civilizations that had ignored humanity began to reconsider, some with fear, some with hope. At the end of this trial, the youth returned to the ruins of the dead star. Calm settled over them. Kal stood beside them, silent but supportive. The crown felt lighter, yet more present. The youth understood that the galaxy would continue to test them, that challenges would grow, but also that humanity had a role far beyond expectation. The story of the small crowned soul reached far corners, whispered by those who sensed the presence without seeing it. And as Part 4 closed, the youth prepared for the greatest trials yet, understanding that power was not in destruction, but in the quiet strength of emotion balanced and guided by compassion. The galaxy trembled as the youth's presence spread beyond Luma. Distances no human could imagine were affected by the weight of feeling. Ships stalled mid-flight, communications crackled, and strange lights appeared across stars. Some aliens fled in panic, others paused in awe. Every observer realized that one human, small and seemingly weak, carried a power that no weapon could match. Kale worked beside the youth, helping them focus, to guide emotions rather than letting them overwhelm. He understood that the galaxy was watching, and that every action or feeling could ripple across star systems. The youth spent long hours meditating, learning to sense distant suffering, to feel joy from faraway victories, and to balance sorrow with hope. At the same time, alien factions began to mobilize. Some wanted to contain the human, fearing destruction. Others wished to ally, hoping to learn from this power. Commander Talar returned, humbled but determined. His ships moved carefully, studying the youth's responses. Other leaders sent emissaries, some in fear, some in curiosity. The galaxy had entered a new age, one where emotion mattered as much as firepower. The youth faced moments of extreme trial. Entire planets were in danger due to natural disasters, wars, and accidents. The human felt the pain and fear of every living being. For hours, even days, the youth struggled under the weight. Kale stayed close, offering quiet support, helping to channel feelings into understanding rather than panic. With every controlled heartbeat, the youth learned that balance was not passive. It was active. Compassion, anger, fear, and hope could all be used wisely when guided. One day, the youth sensed an enormous wave of hatred rising from a distant conflict. The feeling was sharp, heavy, and violent. If left unchecked, it could spread, causing destruction across multiple systems. The youth closed their eyes, breathing slowly, focusing on understanding rather than fighting. The crown above their head shimmered faintly, visible to the few who watched. The wave of hatred slowed, then dissolved. Lives were spared. Ships returned to function. Chaos was contained not by weapons, but by the quiet control of one human's heart. Kale and the other humans began to see the pattern. Humans were not meant to dominate with strength. Their purpose had always been to maintain balance, to guide, to heal. The youth became a living example of this truth. Alien observers who had once laughed at humans now bowed their heads, some in respect, others in fear. Commander Talar finally approached in humility. He admitted that the galaxy had underestimated the smallest and most fragile species. He offered alliance rather than conflict, acknowledging that the human youth was beyond any known threat. Instead of hostility, he now sought guidance. The youth felt the emotions of the commander: regret, hope, fear, and the desire to change. With a small nod, the youth accepted. It was not a surrender to power, but an understanding of responsibility. Across the galaxy, similar shifts began. Leaders paused, fleets held fire. Communications sent messages of peace and inquiry rather than threat. Meanwhile, distant ancient watchers, machines left behind by civilizations long dead, recorded the events. They observed humans in a new light. The youth's actions had awakened knowledge long forgotten. Emotion, properly balanced and guided, had reshaped not just wars, but civilizations. As Part 5 closed, the youth stood on Luma 9, calm but aware. The galaxy no longer saw humans as weak or insignificant. They saw the quiet power of balance, the strength of compassion, and the weight that one small crowned soul could carry. The stage was set for the final resolution, for the last test that would determine whether humanity would guide or simply exist in the universe. The stars themselves seemed to wait, holding their breath, for what the youth would choose next. The youth stood on the highest ridge of Luma 9, looking at the stars that had long been silent witnesses. Each twinkle seemed alive, carrying the stories of countless worlds. The crown, invisible to most, felt heavier now, a weight not of power, but of responsibility. The galaxy had changed because of one small human. Entire civilizations paused, fleets held their fire, and even ancient watchers recorded the balance being restored. Kale stood nearby, quiet as always, watching the youth. He had guided them, helped them understand the true depth of human influence, and now he only offered presence, not advice. The youth did not need instructions. They could feel the threads of emotion across space, understand the connections between people, planets, and civilizations. A message came, carried by a small, fast ship. It was from the distant council of leaders who had once sought to control or destroy the youth. They asked for guidance, not confrontation. They admitted their mistakes and their fear. The youth felt their genuine hope and sorrow, and chose a path that had always been the human way: compassion. Instead of taking control, the youth offered understanding. Instructions were simple: Empathy should guide choices. Violence should be a last resort. Healing should come first. Alien fleets, once prepared for battle, now worked together to repair the damage caused by past conflicts. Refugees were rescued. Systems that had been destabilized slowly returned to order. The ripple of one human's emotions continued to stabilize the galaxy. Even Commander Talar, once a figure of fear and logic, bowed in respect. He understood at last that true strength did not come from weapons or armies, but from balance, patience, and understanding. Talar's fleet began to cooperate with humans and other species in ways that had never happened before. The galaxy began to breathe a little easier. The youth felt a presence deeper than the stars. Ancient watchers, remnants of civilizations long gone, recorded the choices, the compassion, and the understanding. They had observed humans before, but never in this light. Now the record showed a species not just surviving, but guiding, not through force, but through emotional balance. The crown glimmered faintly, not for domination, but as a signal of responsibility. The youth realized that the greatest act of power was restraint, the greatest strength was understanding, and the greatest influence came from empathy. Every action, every choice, every feeling mattered. Days passed. The youth remained on Luma, Khan, Dine. 9 calm but aware. Kale and the human companions who had arrived earlier helped maintain a network of communication and understanding across star systems. Humans, once overlooked and dismissed, were now recognized for their unique role. Aliens no longer feared them in the same way, but rather observed them with respect and curiosity. The youth often walked alone on the ridges, feeling the quiet heartbeat of the galaxy. Each twinkle in the sky was a story, each planet a life. The human understood that even in stillness, action mattered. One small soul, carrying balance, could influence galaxies without striking a single blow. In the final quiet moment, the youth's gaze fell upon a newborn star, flickering softly in the distance. A single tear rolled down their cheek, carrying both sorrow for what had been lost and hope for what would come. The crown shimmered once more, not as a weapon, not as a mark of rule, but as a symbol. The universe itself seemed to respond. Lights danced faintly across distant nebulae. The rhythm of life and emotion resonated more clearly, and balance held. The smallest soul had carried the heaviest duty. And in doing so, humanity was no longer small, overlooked, or weak. It was a quiet anchor, a guide, and a force of stability in an immense, shifting cosmos. The galaxy would remember, the stars would remember, and the small crowned soul whose emotions had shaken galaxies had finally fulfilled their purpose without violence, without domination, and without fear. They had simply understood the power of compassion, the weight of balance, and the reach of a single heart.